Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. Hello and welcome to the very real and relatable stories of business owners going through the various stages of chaos and beautiful growth that is the experience of building a small business. It really is my pleasure to bring them to you. This episode is no different, but I would go as far as to say it's profoundly impactful. Cherie is the creative force behind the newly launched gourmet marshmallow brand Hella Mallow, and in the telling of how she got here, she's sharing with you the real and very raw experience of deep burnout, the ways in which following our business dreams can heal us, navigating the major life transition of parenting, the way our known skills can help us navigate what we don't yet know, and the experience of launching first and refining later. Business is deeply personal and the experience can be isolating. Let this chat and all of our others enable you to feel seen and supported. Let's get into it. I'm here with Cherie Donnellan, founder of Hella Mallow, who hand makes hella good gourmet marshmallows fresh to order from Australia's Great Ocean Road. These are not your average marshmallows, let me tell you, listener. These are sweet, stunning, squishy blocks of beauty that look absolutely decadent. Just imagine having those sealed fresh and express posted to your door. That is what Cherie does. It was a business created through some home trial and a why bloody not turn this into a business attitude. And we're catching Cherie at an exciting time. Recording this podcast just shortly after she's launched, meaning we get to dig right into the why, how, and in the moment reflections that just drive so much inspiration for all of us in this game. As Cherie says herself, who starts a gourmet marshmallow business while already running another business and wrangling 2 kids under 4? Well, here we are. And I can't wait to hear the story, Cherie. Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Thanks for having me, Kim, and thank you for that introduction.
You're so welcome. I just had far too much fun actually looking at the squishiness of these beautiful marshmallows.
Oh, yes, you can get so caught up in my Instagram videos, which are all about that kind of ASMR style of, ripping them apart and stuff that people love. They go nuts for it.
Oh, it really works. So absolutely lean into that. But before we get all squishy and mallowy into your business, tell me how your best friend might describe you.
You know, I've been listening to your podcast for quite some time, and every single time you ask this of someone, what always comes to my mind is my best friend delivering the 21st speech at my 21st. And it's kind of funny that this is what she says in today's context, but she was describing me as Barbie, and not because I'm a tall, leggy blonde, but because of the fact that Barbie has had so many different careers and different roles in people's lives. And she thought that that's what I had done, even though, I was only 21. And I laugh at some of the examples that I remember her bringing up. The first thing that she said was teacher Barbie, and that was because I was always correcting her English homework, which is funny that I then spent, most of my career in journalism, marketing and communications. She described me as Dr. Barbie because I'm always the one who looks after friends and family when they're sick, or, when we were teenagers and drinking too much alcohol at a party. If I saw someone that I thought had just taken it too far, I was always the one who would go and help them, even if I wasn't sober myself, and make sure that they got home safely. And I think I'm still that person in all of my friends and family lives. I'm kind of the first to jump in a crisis. Dancer Barbie, because I spent 20 years doing Irish dancing, both competing nationally and as a teacher for the last few years, because I stopped competing because of lots of injuries and health issues. And then probably the most funny one was editor Barbie, because my dream at that point in time was to be the editor of Cosmopolitan magazine. I thought that, I'd spend my entire career in journalism and that's where I was going to be. And it's funny that, we're sitting here looking at each other on camera, and in the sort of top corner behind me is this little teddy bear. It's a Beanie Kid. And I collected Beanie Kids as a kid. But when I was about 20, my mum came home one day and said, I've got a present for you. And she hands me this bear. And I was like, Mum, I haven't had Beanie Kids or collected them since I was about 10. What are you doing? What are you giving me this bear for? She said, have a look at the tag. And it was Cherie the Cosmopolitan bear. And I was like, you are kidding me, aren't you? And she said, you're gonna be the editor of Cosmopolitan one day and you're going to put that on your desk. And it's funny that my career went so far away from that, but I still hold on to it because I remember my dream at that time and, it still holds special value.
That is a brilliant analogy, and I so relate. I mean, Barbie mania has gotten me as much as it has everybody else over the last 6 months or so. So I'm very much enjoying the anecdote generally, but just that having so many different roles through our lives, but also being able to hold so many roles at once, I think is something that can often be perceived as not a great thing by others or even by ourselves. We look at pivots like they're problems, or look at pivots like they're making us, not concentrating on just one thing like we're supposed to, quote unquote. But being able to hold all of those different senses of self that we put into different situations or into different roles and careers or businesses over the years, like that's actually where the good stuff is, not being able to put ourselves into a one bucket and one bucket only. Like that's where the growth is. It's just that we have that issue trying to put people into something understandable and very quickly. So I really like that and might even start to use it in my day. Like right now I am admin Barbie. Later on, I am going to be reconciliation Barbie, reconciling my accounts, or marketing Barbie. Like, I just think that's fantastic. So we're well and truly on a tangent potential here. So I'll pull myself back before the listener just turns off and goes, oh, guys, get it together. Let's get into business Barbie, because your business has only just started, yes, which is fantastic. But you have a lot more to you in terms of your career story, which you've alluded to there, and previous businesses. So before the business Barbie of Hella Mallow, who were you?
I thought that I was going to be a journalist and spend my whole life as a journalist. And I did. The start of my career actually came from a university assignment that I did, a radio journalism piece of all things, where a lecturer that I didn't even have, he was on a different campus to my university, was the one grading the piece. And he got in touch with me and said, this is brilliant. Do you have a job lined up? And if not, can I put you in touch with a senior journalist at a Geelong newspaper, because I know that you study in Geelong. I said, oh, well, I don't live here, but yes, I commute every day and, I would love a start. So for sure, connect me. And so he connected me with this senior journo who said, oh, we've actually just hired for the role that we were looking for, but I think there's going to be one coming up soon. And he got in touch, I think about 6 or 8 weeks later, so it wasn't that long, and said, we'd like you to come in for an interview. And they told me at the time that as well as doing news reporting and being the entertainment reporter, which I quite liked the idea of, that they were just about to launch a regional lifestyle magazine. And that to me was gold. I thought, okay, here's my foot in the door. I wanted to be this magazine queen, and I was going to be able to get my start as a feature writer. I did that. I wrote features for the first edition. And once the first edition came out, the marketing manager, who was supposed to be kind of acting like an editor, quit. And I ran into my editor's office and I said, pick me, hire me, I'll do it. I'll do all of her work. And I was a cadet at the time. So it was probably ludicrous to think that I would be the person that they would pick. But they decided to hire me. And so I basically became like an assistant editor for this magazine. So I would organize fashion shoots and I would run all of their social media, and I tried to promote it online, and I got out in touch with lots of different businesses, and I did all the page layouts and all of that, still while doing all of my news reporting commitments. And I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. But of course, trying to do so much work, I think that was probably when I started having my first experience of burnout, because I love working so much when I am passionate about something that I will do absolutely everything and take on probably more than I can chew, just for the hell of it, because I get caught up in the excitement. And yeah, it was well and truly that a couple of years into trying to juggle all of that work that I experienced burnout for the first time. And it was quite minor then, but as we talk more about kind of what I've done in my career, you'll see that burnout is quite a key theme and is actually what led to Hella Mallow. So yeah, I moved on very quickly from journalism and I was looking for something different. I really cared about digital and the experience of digital, which at the time, particularly in newsrooms, was still not endorsed or not seen as an opportunity. And I was so frustrated by that I went to a social media agency and became an account manager there, which at the time meant that you were, not only the client liaison, you were the content creator, you were the photographer, you were, the videographer, you were the graphic designer a lot of times, you were the ads manager, you were the community manager, it was everything. And so it was my first taste of the kind of marketing world, really. And doing everything taught me a lot, but I didn't last very long there because I think I realized that I still loved longer form content. And I didn't really get to do that in, specializing in social media. So I ended up moving to a larger agency where I was a content strategist and a copywriter for some really big brands. Two of the accounts that I was content lead on was Kmart and Officeworks. And I was with those businesses at really pivotal times, really transformative times in their businesses. When I was content lead for Kmart, it was when they had just become really cool for bringing out new homewares that were actually fashionable and people wanted to buy, and it was selling out. And they were about to put that same kind of transformational lens onto all of their fashion ranges and their beauty ranges. And they were really going to expand, that new love that people had for Kmart. And so I was able to come in from a marketing side of things and really help them out with their website, with, all of the emails that they sent to customers, with advice around their social media strategy, with advice around their content strategy overall. And for Officeworks, it was kind of the same. They were really wanting to be seen as cool. And they have a really cool way of thinking about their customers, which is not, that you are Judy, the personal shopper or whatever, but they think about their customers in need state because they actually recognize that one person could be shopping for multiple different reasons. We ended up creating 2 sites in the beginning, one to engage small business owners and then one to engage personal customers. And so we had these 2 very different content marketing sites. And for the small business site, I basically got to be the editor of that. And so I got to speak to these really amazing business owners. It's funny that, down the track, become a small business owner myself. And I think that was maybe the starting point for me, that the seed was planted, that one day I wanted to run my own business. But it would be a few years until I did. I started specializing in not-for-profit. I worked for Beyond Blue for several years. Then I ended up contracting. But I kept coming back to this point of I want to work for myself and I don't know what that's going to be yet. And I had all these different ideas that I wanted to pursue, but a lot of them required venture capital. And I just wasn't sure that that's the route that I really wanted to go down. I think that's when I thought maybe the easiest thing would be to go out on my own, to be a copywriter. And it was something that I did do for a few years in between kind of contracting, and COVID very nicely made its entrance in between those stages. I had kids in that time and I experienced burnout multiple times in that time. And that was when I finally kind of came up with Hella Mallow, which really came out of a very strange kind of circumstance of just me turning to my husband and saying, I wonder if you can make marshmallows. And he said, I don't know, Google it. And I did, and you could. And I tried them once and thought it was just this magical experience. And yeah, I think it was after the first time that I made them that I started consuming everything that I could find about, how do you run a confectionery business? How do you run a marshmallow company? I'd made them once, and there was just something, I just knew there was something. And yeah, there you go. I'm now a month into running this business and loving it.
I'd really like to dig in just a little bit more in terms of what did burnout look like for you? Like, what was that experience like for you, being such an ambitious individual and so lit up by work? I love the way that you described losing a sense of context when you're passionate about something and just like loving to work. I really resonate with that. And I think a lot of other people will as well, that when you're just really hooked into something fun and exciting and fulfilling, it's hard to get context on how you're managing your life and yourself in and around that. But can you tell me a little bit about what burnout looked like for you through that process?
I think that the first kind of major burnout that I feel that I felt was all caught up in the whirlwind of having children, for the first time, having my first child, coming back to work after my first child, and COVID hitting 7 weeks after I came back to work. And it had already come off the back of all of these kind of crazy personal experiences for me. And so I think that there was kind of this 5-year run up, really. If I look back now, there was 5 years of me just thrown into challenge after challenge after challenge, and me just going, okay, this is life now, make it work, stay positive. And I'd go and go and go. And then it was probably around the time of having my second child, still in COVID. It was 2022 by this point. I was trying to work out, how do I be a mum of two? What does work look like for me? I had been contracting kind of in the years surrounding, having my son, and then, going into having my daughter. And so contracting in itself can feel quite insecure at times. And I was taking a lot of, maternity leave contracts, and I wasn't sure whether there was going to be ongoing work. And I was wanting to build my copywriting business at that time. I thought that that was something that I was going to do. And I was kind of giving that a good go. But then you have a baby, and it's very hard to run a business and have a baby at the same time, particularly when you're new to motherhood. And you're like, oh, now I need to work out this whole new version of me and what's my place in the world, and, what does my role look like in my own life. But kind of also when you feel like you're secondary in your own life, that maybe sounds crazy to people who don't have kids, but for me it was this really fundamental feeling of, I've got this tiny human to look after, and their needs need to come before mine, but I also have to provide for this tiny human, and I also want a sense of purpose. And motherhood, provides me this great sense of purpose, that I don't want that to be all of me, because I know that there is so much more to me. And I was this whole person before I was a mum. And so, I think it was after I had my second child, I had come back to kind of in a mix of contracting and trying to run my own business and manage 2 kids in a pandemic. And I had, again, taken on more than I can chew. And I was just exhausted. I was really depleted. I felt like I'd lost my creative energy. I was managing a team at the time through a maternity leave contract, and also doing, some work through my business on the side. My husband is a senior police officer, so he is away a lot. And it means that I'm kind of the one who has to, set the kind of the boundaries and the expectations for our kids every day, who, the eldest isn't even 5 yet. And much of, their childhood started in a period of COVID. So a very different experience of childhood than, I guess, what I might have even known as a child. I wanted to do as much as I could for them. And so trying to be everything to everyone, obviously wasn't going to work long term. And I kind of just fell in a heap. I came out of that wanting a creative project and wanting to find me again. And that was when I made marshmallows for the first time. And as I said to you, had this really magical moment of just feeling zen as I made them. I don't know. It was fun to watch everything. There's this, there's a really specific way that you need to make marshmallows. There's stuff to do with temperature and timing and all of that, which I loved, that kind of very precise elements. But then you see, these soft, melty mallows, and I don't know, that it just calmed me making them. And then I was crazy enough to think, I'm going to start a business. And so I went to start this beautiful business. But then still coming out of COVID, heading into a cost of living crisis, thinking, oh gosh, what am I going to do financially? I don't know, starting a business is the right time now, especially something like gourmet marshmallows, like who's buying them? And so I kept pushing it away. I thought I was going to take on some work through my business, but I ended up talking to a client who kind of really needed me in a contracting capacity. And again, my passion for my work, I think, overtook me being able to set boundaries for myself and set boundaries for myself at work. And that was when I ran into the worst burnout I've ever experienced in my life, because I don't think I had dealt with that first round of burnout that I'd really experienced only 12 months before. And I'd, kind of done a Band-Aid job. And so at this point, I've got 2 kids. I'm trying to get a business off the ground, being Hella Mallow at this time. I am, doing contracting so that I can afford our life because our bills and everything has gone up and has gone crazy. I'm doing a lot of solo parenting and, all the mental load stuff and whatever that everyone talks about in motherhood, even though I just want to put in a disclaimer, I have a very supportive husband who is very involved. It's just that his work means that he can't sort of fit into the same routine that our kids have to follow for, childcare and kinder and whatnot. And I fell in a heap so much that getting up was a struggle. Using my brain, I felt like I had lost my ability to write. I'd lost my ability to be creative and, come up with cool ideas. I'd sit at my computer, and the company that I was contracting for, the rest of the team was in Sydney and I was the only one in Victoria, in Geelong. And so, everything was done online. I'd only met them once in person I think I was working with them for a bit over 6 months when I sort of started going into this deep black hole that was burnout. And I was explaining to them, I just don't feel great today. I feel like my brain's not working today. I feel like I can't produce the work that I want to produce for you today. And I'd say that once. And then it became, I was saying it most weeks. And then things like they'd say, oh, can you put together a social media post or something like that? And I'd sit there for 2 hours staring at this, whatever I'd written. And I'd go, oh, that's crap, and I'd delete it, or I'd read it over and over. And no, there's no real idea to connect that to. That's not storytelling. It's just boring sentences. And then I'd be like, why is it taking me 2 hours to write a social media post? Normally I could bang it out in 6 minutes, And I'd get so frustrated and I'd go, okay, go for a walk or something. That's going to help you. I'd go for a walk. I'd come back. I'd sit down. Nah, brain was mush. Okay, I'll go and make a sandwich or something. Maybe I'm just hungry. I'd make a sandwich. I'd come back. Nah, brain was mush. I'll do a different task. I'd start that task. Nah. And I'd keep talking to my manager and my director at that time saying, I don't know what's wrong with me. I ended up seeing a counselor and I kept saying to her, I just miss my energy. I just want my energy back. And she was trying to give me advice because she was like, okay, it sounds like, you're such a passionate person and you feel like you've lost that part of you. And she was trying to give me these ideas, and everything that she said to me, made sense. I mean, I spent 2 years working at Beyond Blue. So I know all the advice about looking after your mental health. And it wasn't necessarily that I wasn't doing those things, but that I felt I didn't have the capacity within me to do those things. So beyond sleeping, I'd wake up tired every morning, even if I had had a decent sleep. Or I'd have insomnia and couldn't sleep all night long and then would try and work the next day. And of course, my brain was going to be mush, if I hadn't slept at all and I've still had to manage the morning routine of children and whatever. Yeah, I felt so blah. And I was so sad because in the middle of that was this beautiful thing that was Hella Mallow that I had pushed to the side because, if I don't have energy to do the things that people are paying me to do, how can I possibly start this business? I don't want to let customers down by saying like they put in an order with me and then I don't deliver on that order because I'm too tired and I've got no energy or I don't feel that I can get it done. And I was never going to launch a business feeling that way. And so I had to stop work entirely in a cost of living crisis because that was my only option. It was that, or I don't know where I would have been. I don't know what my life would have looked like, but I wasn't the mum that I wanted to be to my kids. I wasn't the wife that I wanted to be to my husband. I wasn't the, employee or contractor or business owner or consultant that I wanted to be to anyone that I was working with. And I knew that that had to change. And the only way that that could change was through serious rest and serious recuperation. And that came, but it took months.
Thank you for sharing, Cherie. I think that's a huge gift to share with anybody listening, with the listener who might be resonating with a lot of that, whether it be your story of entering motherhood or losing that creative spark, how it looks in your life. It's such a gift to give. So thank you for sharing it. That internal turmoil you must have been experiencing through that process and that having to face that every day under a microscope, because, when you feel that way, I imagine it's very, very difficult to imagine a time where you don't feel that way and lifting out of it. So yeah, just a huge gift to give. So thank you. And would you be, willing to talk a little more about bringing yourself then back and lifting out of that. So perhaps, a little bit about what that rest period looked like for you. But you've already shared so much, so, don't feel obligated to delve into that, because we've got, we do have squishy marshmallows at the end of this, story that are, on an ever evolving story. But how did you start to rebuild then? And how did you start to find that energy? And how did you do that with that pressure of finances, bearing down on you? It's such a reality for so many people.
I'm not sure that I did anything in any strategic way or thoughtful way. I knew that first I had to rest. There was, no other option. So I spent probably weeks, maybe even more than a month, pretty much just doing the bare minimum of what I had to do to get through a day. So for me, that was still a lot of parenting responsibilities. It's, getting kids out the door and getting them to childcare or to kindergarten, picking them up of an afternoon, making sure that all their dinner and lunches and all that sort of stuff was sorted. Or there are days in the week, I was always kind of working part-time throughout that period. So there were days in the week where I would have them at home with me. Most weekends, my husband has to work. So most weekends, I am solo parenting for, big parts of the day. And that's been their experience for their whole lives. So our family kind of hasn't known any different as a family unit. Basically, the things that I knew that I had to get through. And there were days where I decided that the most I could do was, whack on some chicken nuggets and, cut up a little bit of fruit or whatever. And that was their dinner. And then there were days where I had enough energy to put a little bit more into the way in which I might have played with them or activities we might have done for the day that I knew that would bring me joy. And then I realized that I had been putting off one of the things that was really giving me joy. And that actually was Hella Mallow. It was making marshmallows, even outside of creating the business, which I have had so much fun creating. Making marshmallows on its own thing was this beautiful therapeutic experience for me. I loved the idea of creating different flavors and trying out different flavors. I loved the idea of the process of making them just seems so calming to me, even though there's certain things that are so specific and you have to do it within seconds or you've ruined a whole batch. Something about that kind of little adrenaline rush each time I made them was fun. And so I turned to my husband and I said, I think this is what I want to go back to. I think I need to leave marketing and communications that I've built my career on. I'd spent kind of 15 years doing this work. And while I was very passionate in every role that I took on in that space, I think I realized that in order to move forward, I needed to leave that behind because that kept consuming so much of my mental energy because it's such, I do marketing strategy. So it's brain work. It's huge brain work every day. And then I felt like I didn't have brain work for the rest of my life, which is, looking after kids, and you've got to be so creative with the way that you engage them. I've got two very high energy kids. I don't have calm kids who sit in the corner and read a book by themselves. I've got kids who run around and are crazy and are constantly thinking, and they're big thinkers as well. And so while their brains fascinate me, they also tire me out because I have to think of all these creative ways to engage them. And being able to make marshmallows, one was something that they loved. They loved seeing me create different flavors, and they were always my first taste testers. So I loved seeing the smile on their faces when I made marshmallows. My husband kept saying, when you talk about marshmallows, you smile. When you talk about the idea of building Hella Mallow, you smile and you get on that. I've got this kind of excited voice, this almost like inner golden retriever in me that when I'm and I have a golden retriever, so that's funny. But, I get super excited and super passionate when I'm talking about something that I love. And every time I talked about the idea of finally launching Hella Mallow, I got that inner golden retriever back in the way that I spoke. And I just said to my husband, I think I need to do this. And I know it's going to be hard on us financially, but we had built up savings through our mortgage and that kind of thing. So I knew we had a bit of a buffer, and I knew that it was going to be hard. It wasn't like I had strategically built all of these funds that I'd put in a special Hella Mallow pot. I kind of had little pockets of my personal savings that I was putting into this business. And we had savings through our mortgage that I said, are you okay with this? And he's so supportive that he was like, I'm backing you 100%. Because he's always said to me, he thought even in marketing, he was like, one day you're going to be this crazy, high-powered businesswoman who is going to be completely unstoppable, and you could probably make far more money than I could ever make because you've just got this amazing brain. So I'll back you in. I've never doubted you. And he has always said that to me. He's my biggest cheerleader. It's half the time, it's me believing that of myself, or, failing to believe that of myself, that has held me back. And so I decided I wasn't going to listen to that crappy inner voice anymore that was like, you can't do this. You can't build a business. Who's going to buy marshmallows in a cost of living crisis? And yeah, it was, fuck it. It brings me joy. I'm doing it. So I decided that on Christmas Day, and 38 days later, I launched Hella Mallow.
Oh, so exciting to know that you were pushing yourself in that way, and just so wonderful to hear that you were able to make your way back to this thing that was giving you energy from the beginning, that it sounds like you were kind of pushing down a little bit. And I think that's an experience so many of us have with something that's so outside of what we've done before and so unknown in terms of where it's going to go to. I think particularly those of us who come from any kind of marketing, content, strategy space, we're kind of like, but this needs to go to this, needs to go to this, right? Like, this is how this works. And, stepping into the unknown and following your creative energy down the rabbit hole of understanding what are marshmallows and how do I do this, and going with that must have felt very far removed from comfortable for you, but exciting enough to grab you and keep you going, which is sometimes all we need to do is take one or two steps and then just let everything unfold in front of us. And yeah, so many of us hold ourselves back from the thing that's calling us because we're like, is this it? Is this going to be the thing that fixes everything? But can it just be something that you do for now that gives you what you need, that gets you to that next stage? It's it's really inspiring. 38 days is a very short runway.
Yep.
Not going to lie. But again, hugely relatable, because I have gone from nothing to fully fledged website and business model probably like a few times more than I'm willing to admit now, because when you do get that energy, there's something about it where it exists in your mind like rent free for so long. And then once you put the foot down, it's like, well, it's easy. It just kind of pulls out, easy. I use cautiously because there's a whole bunch of hard shit, I'm sure, in there that I'd love to hear about through that phase, but it just has the right energy behind it. You're like, I can get through this. I don't need to keep thinking about it. It doesn't need to take longer than it's going to take, and it doesn't need to be perfect to get it going. Tell me about how you got it going then. So because you've been experimenting with recipes, and I'm reading between the lines, and I'm kind of like piecing your story together here as well to kind of set context. You've been playing with this. You've been coming up with these ideas or maybe even these recipes, but I imagine there was that to focus on, but also just finding customers. And I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Can you talk to me about getting live?
So I think there were a few things that I had done in the 12 months prior that really were the stepping stone for me to be able to say that I technically launched in 38 days. So, my visual branding, I'm wearing a Hella Mallow t-shirt right now as we chat. That branding I had actually had done in the early stages of 2023 because I thought that was when I was going to be launching. But it was around about that same time that, because of the cost of living crisis and stuff, I put the practical side ahead of the creative side of my brain, which was, okay, bring the money in, do Hella Mallow on the side. That's the safe way to start a business. And so I'd had visual branding done then with a brilliant brand designer, Studio Ampersand. I gave her a brief and I had a pretty clear idea in my mind of what I wanted Hella Mallow to be, but she just took it to a level that when it came back, I just loved it. I said that one of the things that I wanted, this brand to do for me was to bring me joy, to bring me a sense of nostalgia and fun, that it wasn't kiddish. It was grown up, because I did actually see that, some of the flavors that I do is like coffee and salted caramel. So, not every flavor is for kids. It's for adults, and it's about that nostalgic sense. But I also wanted it to be playful and fun and cheeky. And so there's a hidden marshmallow in my logo, which is really cool. The second she sent me everything, I think I immediately posted about it because I did already have social media channels. So I had been building an audience slowly in the 12 months kind of prior to when I actually launched. But a big part of that time as well, when I started experiencing that burnout, I didn't sign into any of my social media accounts for months. I'd built this initial interest in people being like, what's a gourmet marshmallow? Oh my God, this looks amazing. And oh, wow, you're turning this into a business, to completely, I couldn't show up on any of those channels because it made me want to cry, signing into them and looking at them, knowing that I wasn't launching. It wasn't happening. And I was, angry and frustrated and upset because I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I was pushing it away to prioritize all of these other things that were taking away from, my energy, I guess. And so when I came back to it, I still had the visual brand. I had dormant social channels that I, of course, then had to put in a lot of work to reactivate that audience and be like, hey, remember me? I'm back. And people kind of quickly jumped back on board, which was great. And a big part of it was me then, showing up to networking events and talking to people a lot through my social media channels, people who had been interested in the early days and saying, hey, I'm here and I'm making this a thing and it's happening and I'm building the website as we speak and I'm, planning my launch line as we speak and I'm going to launch it with Valentine's Day. So I'm going to do all these flavors that I love and I'm going to do some special things if people want to gift stuff for Valentine's Day. Yeah, everyone jumped on board and I had so much support. And having all of that behind me really gave me the confidence that I'm doing the right thing. I've, taken a leap that will pay off.
I found myself nodding a lot around the social media aspect of things. Interesting time for us to be having this conversation because I am experiencing an element of burnout myself at the moment, in waking up consistently tired, in, head in too many places and I'm having my own sort of different but similar experience in burnout, my own level of it. And the whole going dark on the socials thing, because looking at it makes you feel sad. I really understand that. And I think a lot of people will understand that from different perspectives. And now I'm speaking from the perspective of this brand, this podcast, which I know supports a lot of people and I know a lot of people love it. Geez, I love it so, so, so much. Gosh, it takes a lot out of me to do it, given that it's a something that I do that isn't currently bringing in any revenue. It's a strange thing because it's something I do and it is my business, but it's not like every time someone chooses to listen, I get paid. That's just, it doesn't exactly how things work right now. Maybe in the future that will be the case. And so it's one of those things where it's like, it's pressure, but I look at my socials and I'm like, I need to pay attention to that and I need to grow that because that's going to equal this thing over here, which is going to, be able to make it bigger, which is going to mean that it can be, financially supportive for me as well as help so many other people. And it's like that sadness in looking at it and being like, but I don't have the energy to figure out what to say here to engage.
Yeah.
And then having to go from that to be like, now I've let it go dark for so long. I've got to bring up that level again and I've got to re-engage. It's like, fucking mountain. Like, what a mountain to climb. Like,
it does feel huge.
Think about all of these things. I'm just like, but I'm so tired. Like, I don't even know. I can't. Like, I know I have all the things to do the plans. I know so much about content strategy and marketing strategy, but just that actually putting the energy in and seeing it grow into the space that you want to is so, so, so hard. So I was just nodding away with your sharing then and felt appropriate to share just that I go through the same battle too, in terms of you see this thing that you are so passionate about that you want to build, but feel sad that it's not there yet and sad that you can't give it what it needs to get there yet. And it's just a real battle. And I think social media and then the externalization of our success plays such a big part in that as well. These vanity metrics that we're also completely trained to be obsessed with, and the unfortunate nature that those vanity metrics often mean actual revenue, is hard as well. So yeah, it's hugely relatable. So just trust that what you're building is going to happen. And I'm saying the same thing to myself and for anyone else listening. Like, it is, even if we can only put 5% in one day, that's okay. It's perfectly okay. But here we are, and it is a real business, and it is launching, and it is building in that space. Where is the focus or the pressure on now? What's working for you to reach customers, and how is it feeling now, given what you came through to get here?
It's feeling really good as far as what I'm doing creatively. I know that I'm in the right space, but this is the point in which, financial pressures obviously really start weighing on you. Like, okay, how am I making sure that I'm making sales? Are people buying my collections? I think I did a really good job of the way that I launched my business. And I think it was a smart idea for me to launch in tandem with Valentine's Day, being that, people like giving small gifts and chocolates and, that kind of thing. So that's where I knew that that was a good idea and it wasn't too far away for me to launch, that I could just jump in, do everything to the best of my ability as quick as I could and get it going. This is the serious end where I'm like, okay, I'm in this and I'm doing this full time. And it's not like as if I saved and, put $100,000 away somewhere for me to be able to then comfortably spend this time just testing ideas. I need to really be leaning into, okay, the second that I see this working, how do I build on that element that's working on social media? Or, what new place do I need to engage? So I'm already at a stage of thinking, all right, when am I going to bring in paid advertising? Is that important for me in terms of being able to scale quickly? Because organic is great, but at the moment, organic is so challenging because of algorithms and stuff on social media. A lot of people obviously, want to do things free for as long as possible, because as a new business, you don't have huge amounts of money to spend on advertising and things. But I know that sometimes, front loading those expenses and paying for it up front, if you've got an understanding of it, which I do because of my background, that I can run with it, make decisions comfortably and run with it in a way that will build my business faster. Not everyone can do that though. I think especially if you don't feel comfortable with things like social media or paid advertising, if you don't understand your numbers and understand how analytics work, it can be very overwhelming and you can make decisions in the dark based on, some expert or whatever telling you, oh, you need to do this for Facebook and Instagram advertising, or like TikTok is where it's at and you need to go and spend all your money there, or whatever it is. It's so hard when you're a small business owner to hand over your hard-earned cash or cash that you maybe don't even really have to hand over. And if you don't have that confidence of, I know you're telling me the truth, or you're actually bullshitting me right now, and you're going to take my money and run with it, and what I get back, who knows? I know when people aren't telling me the right thing, and I thankfully have this network of brilliant people that I can work with if I do want to outsource things rather than do it myself. And I have confidence and trust in those people. But a lot of small business owners don't have that network and can end up making really terrible decisions because they don't have the knowledge in, what it takes to build a social media platform, or what it takes to invest in advertising and actually see, return on your investment. So it can be really scary.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you finding the most challenging at the moment for your business and for your business growth? Like now it's, been not too long since you've been launching. So it's kind of like, you're getting into it. What's the kind of the day-to-day challenges that you're working with right now?
I think, because I launched so quickly, I didn't launch in a perfect way where I thought about all the systems and processes that I should have in place before starting a business. I didn't even set up an accounting system. My accounting system at the moment literally is a cake box.
It's so relevant.
And I shared that with my social media audience last week, and I had so many business owners, particularly those in the confectionery place, laugh and respond to me saying, yeah, mine's in something similar, or heaps of people saying mine's in a shoebox and whatever else. And I'd go, okay, do you have an online system? Yeah, I logged into Xero once, I think, And I'm like, hey, I totally get that. I'm in the same space. I still have to set up all of those things retrospectively. And so that's what is taking up a lot of my time now. It's, working backwards in a way and going, okay, so I know that when I did my launch collection, these were all the things that would have helped me to, run my days smoother and to make sure that things got out to people on time. And for most of the collection, because I had said to people, it's essentially a pre-order. So I'm going to be sending them as close to Valentine's Day as possible so that you get them just in time and they are as fresh as possible. I had 70 orders to make in the space of a week, when I, before that, really was making at most 2 or 3 for, family and friends for different events. So to go from 2 or 3 batches to making 70 orders was a huge learning curve for me in terms of what it takes to, when you're doing everything yourself as well. I don't think people realize how much time it takes, like making marshmallows in themselves to actually just make a finished marshmallow is at least a 2-day process. And then, you've got to pack them. And some of my things are sample packs. So I have to make 4 different batches to fill one little sample pack. And, I need different elements to pack those orders. And then I need to put my stickers on. And I've got this beautiful ribbon that I put on so that it looks really nice from a branded perspective. And then I think about, okay, what's the unboxing experience that everyone talks about when they share it on social media? What does that look like for me? I have said at the moment to all of my customers that I'm only allowing an express shipping option through Australia Post, because even for express shipping at the moment, it takes days. Gone are the days of same day delivery, and particularly because I'm in Geelong in Victoria. So I'm considered regional. Sometimes regional packages are not prioritized in the same way that, say, a Melbourne to Melbourne address is prioritized. And so if I'm delivering, say, regional Victoria to regional Victoria, I've had people tell me it took 5 days. Express post, 5 days. Like, what? And here's me going, well, imagine if I had charged standard shipping and that got thrown to the back of the to-do list, and then they're not getting their marshmallows for 2 weeks. And gourmet marshmallows, in the way that I make them, don't have the same shelf life as what they do in a supermarket, where you can keep them for like a year and they're fine. Gourmet marshmallows really are best consumed probably in the first kind of 2 to 4 weeks of getting them. And then if you store them correctly, which, I advise my customers on little cards that I put in their packages, they can keep them for another couple of months quite comfortably. But, if they don't store them correctly, well, they can spoil. And I know, like, I can't give instructions to Australia Post and say, go and put them here or put them in a fridge or whatever, where I can do that, but at a much bigger cost again. And shipping costs is already a concern for my customers. It's $16.50 to send a tiny little box that's this big, which fits maybe 2 little 4-packs for me. And half the time I'm sending big gift boxes. So, if people order 2 or 3 big gift boxes for me, I have to send a package that's this big, and I'm charging my customer $16.50 as a flat rate, but it might actually cost me $20-something to pack their order and ship their order, and that eats into my potential profitability. So I'm trying to find the fine line of, where do I help my customers and go, I'll try and absorb the costs, but when does it become impractical for me? Because I am ultimately still running a business to make a living. I'm not running a business to serve the community and die a slow financial death, or perhaps a fast one. There needs to be this balance. And that's been a big challenge for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you tested going into markets or anything yet?
I haven't yet, but it's definitely on my calendar for this year. So I think it's going to be something that I will do kind of in the winter season. And then I'll see if I can jump onto the real market season, which is pretty much from kind of like late October through the summer. But I knew it wasn't going to be a smart idea to try and do markets for the first time and launch a business at the same time. So I decided, ease myself in, do my online collections, see how far that gets me, and then be really strategic about where I'm going to show up for markets. So I think some will probably be in the kind of Geelong and Surf Coast region later this year, and I might consider kind of 1 or 2 in Melbourne. And then I think I'd really love over the next few years, as I'm building the brand, because I do want to be known around Australia, it would be really fun if I could travel and take Hella Mallow to some markets interstate as well.
Very cool. You've just been so generous today with your sharing of this story and where you're at and the hopes for your business as well. Like, I cannot imagine, and I said this to you, I think even in early comms on our emails, like, this brand is visually beautiful and so fun and so entertaining and has so much potential. And, it's just about taking it where you want to and scaling it into a place wherever you want to. And I think so much of that is just trial and error as you get started and being like, how big versus how niche versus how small. Small is big sometimes. So, I'm sure you're going to go through the phase of working that out. But it's just been so awesome to hear your story. And, I want to see you grow. The listener wants to see you grow as well. So what can we do to support you?
You can find Hella Mallow on social media. So I'm at Hella Mallow on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. God, I've got Pinterest and YouTube and all those kinds of things, but I'm mostly on Instagram and trying to get better at TikTok. But I'm a millennial, so, I'm still finding TikTok is not as accessible, but yeah, trying to learn it. Or to jump onto my website and buy some marshmallows. So it's www.hellamallow.com.au.
I'll make sure to have the links to all of the things for the listener in the show notes so they can go get around your business, give you some support, throw you likes, shares, follows, orders, all the things. Just so appreciative of having your time today and hearing your story, Cherie. Thank you for sharing with me.
No, thank you, Kim. It's been really nice to kind of talk about my journey and reflect with you and definitely hear you say that you've experienced similar things. So yeah, I love what you're doing with this podcast. Please keep doing it because people like us really need to hear stories of other business owners who are in the thick of it, and you do it so brilliantly. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.